I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home, I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing, winds that make the tall grass.
Hi, my name is Larry White, and I am your producer and director of The Inner Beat. The Inner Beat is a socially conscious program that sometimes showcases cultural events as well as community events. And occasionally, we'll even bring you a little song and dance. So sit back and enjoy The Inner Beat.
That's real. But anyway, so, you know, we are in a very, very challenging time, and we are going to need more than ever the support of the folks in our communities. You know, I think that just the last few days kind of gives you a sense of the attitude on the local level as far as the city government is concerned. And I think that the mayor has shown himself in his true colors, so to speak. And I know that many of the complaints were coming from the so-called outer boroughs, but when I was in the city council, one thing I was informed of right away: Harlem is an outer borough too. So you can be sure that what folks suffered in other parts of the city, the folks in the Harlems of the city, not just the one that we're in today, but the one that existed in the Bronx and other boroughs, went through the same thing. So we know that there's a great challenge in front of us to make sure that our community gets served properly on the local level. And then, of course, I'm in the Senate, in the state Senate, and there's a giant problem that's happening up there as well in terms of being able to make sure that the types of budget cuts that are being projected and the tax cuts that are being projected, you know, tax cuts always sound good, but until you realize what's being cut. And generally speaking, what's being cut is what our communities rely on in terms of Medicaid and other kinds of services, including jobs. And usually those who get the tax cuts, like you might get, thank God, $5 back. Somebody else is getting $5 million back. And I don't quite think that's equal. And I think if you said, well, I don't need that $5 because that $5 million is going to pay for some services that are going to be coming to my neighborhood, you would probably not want that cut. But the way the message is being played out right now all over the country, but especially New York State as well, is this: they're trying to cut back government supposedly to save you money, but the money you save will be lost on some other way in terms of the services that are not being provided. In fact, the crisis that we went through in the last few days to some extent has to do with them trying to save money. It wasn't just a matter of incompetence. It may look like incompetence, but it's that kind of planned incompetence, like planned shrinkage. So I think that was not a total surprise. I think what was the surprise was the outrage that came from it. I don't think that they automatically expected folks to accept that to reject and to protest as much as they did. So thank goodness that the people of the city of New York did. And we're looking forward to a rough time on the state level, but we're hopeful that as we stay in touch with the community, that we'll get the support and the kind of advocacy that'll help us mitigate, make less the kind of cuts that are being proposed right through here. I just want to acknowledge Dr. Jeffries and his wife. You know, we just came back from Senegal. So, you know, that was a real blessing for me. I had the opportunity to be there at another time. But I was listening to the comments about Egypt and the sphinxes and You know, there's one now in a certain way that's been built in Senegal. It's the monument that is been built by the president. It's the greatest, largest monument in the world. And maybe you'll get a chance to hear from Dr. Jeffries explain to you his understanding of the monument and its symbolism and its significance for our people, but it is a tribute to the president in terms of his vision for a United States of Africa. And it is a tribute to even the people that allowed him to use their resources that way. But it's an enormous monument that includes a father, his wife, and their child, their son, that is facing the West. Thank you, Dr. Jeffries. And there's a reason for that, and I hope that he gets a chance to explain that to you, but obviously it's facing us. It's reaching out to us. So there's that connection that is trying to be made between those of us here in the diaspora with those of us who are still there on the continent. And part of the process, the purpose for our being there was to develop this whole idea of a United States of Africa. And the so-called diaspora is a part of that, as part of the so-called 6th region of the African Union. So it's a wonderful experience. There's a lot of good things going on from that perspective that I think brings us some hope and some inspiration, some motivation for doing the kind of good work that y'all do here every day for every year in terms of this institution and the Kwanzaa event that they have. I want to conclude by just asking you to continue to stay strong in your faith with respect to what needs to be done and can be done for our people in our community, and especially for our young people. There's a message going out that our children can't learn, and except if they go to schools under certain circumstances. And we've got to be careful that that message is not allowed to be perpetuated. My colleague, Assemblyman Hakeem Jeffries, spoke to you about what was going on with the Chancellor and his efforts, his heroic efforts to try to stop that. That's a big, big issue. That's a big, big signal for what the leadership of this city thinks about public education. Imagine you being able to use someone else's qualifications to get your job. Wow. Imagine you even trying that. See if you don't get arrested for fraud. Imagine you using somebody else's driver's license to drive a car and being stopped and saying, well, you know, I got so-and-so's license. See how far you get with that. But they will allow someone to use someone else's credentials to take the leadership of our public schools, in which most of the children are our children. Can you imagine doing that any place else? That doesn't make any sense. Yet, the courts approved it. Obviously, the mayor was very, very supportive of it. And I'm sorry to say that even some of our own members of our own community stood in the picture in support of that. And this gives you a signal of the privatization, the money-making that is a part of the decision-making when it comes to public education. Because her qualifications is that she knows how to make a lot of money, just like the mayor. And that's a concern that I have, a legitimate concern that we all should have, because when you're doing something for profit, then that becomes the motivation. And that's the bottom line. And I don't think everything that's done through the corporate sector is always in the best interest of the people in our community. In fact, one of the reasons, by the way, why some people believe we had this problem with this storm is because there's an interest in privatizing the sanitation department. Okay? So keep an eye on these things, because when we start talking about them and protesting them, don't be surprised if you read in the papers how bad we are for daring to say and daring to challenge these policies that are going to have an adverse impact on our communities. Those are the struggles that are in front of us right now in government. The whole paradigm is shifting into one that says the private sector approaches are the best and only approaches that make sense. So while other people are making money off of what we are, our taxes, and yet we're still not getting the kind of services that are important to us. So again, I want to just thank you for the opportunity to be here and to continue. Well, the lawsuit was lost. They made a decision and the judge said she could do it. So that's a precedent. That's a precedent that I suspect is going to be used time and time again for different things where credentials historically were required, but now credentials, imagine Dr. Jeffries being a professor using my credentials. I mean, you know, I'd be honored if he did that, but the reality is that we would not have the opportunity for the genius of research and information that he has to share. And, you know, we would be doing a great disservice to higher education to have me, my credentials, being used by him to do his work. He has done the work, he has done the research, he has suffered the debates, not only intellectually, but politically. So he has earned his credentials, he has earned his stature, and he was highly regarded, him and his wife, when they were in Senegal. They were highly regarded, and that's why they were invited. So, you know, we've got to maintain our standards even as the other side is using different standards. We've got to challenge those. Those are the big challenges, I think, that are coming for those of us who are in public service or in government, that they're going to be using different standards that are not necessarily the right standards in order for people to get the kind of appointments and to do the kind of public policy that is going to be affecting in a very significant way our communities. So Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa. Look forward to working with you throughout the year. Thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this ceremony, to be a part of the work that you do on behalf of the young people, especially in our community. Thank you so much.
Wake up everybody, no more sleeping in bed, no more backward thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be.